All right, today we're talking about expansion 4, which is kind of crazy to think about considering that this game's been out for over 10 years now, and we've only gotten 3 expansions within that time. I think we would have gotten a hell of a lot more if ArenaNet wasn't fucking around and that whole situation didn't happen between Path of Fire, or rather Living World Season 4, and the tragedy that was the Icebreed Saga, and of course eventually End of Dragons. Man, what a shitfest. So I'm at least happy we're getting some consistent amount of content, hopefully. Assuming other games do very, very well, like Destiny 2 and Final Fantasy. Now that I think about it, I don't think any other game even comes close to those two games for as far as like, you know, the consistent content and how it's actually good. You know, like the Destiny community loves to complain about the patches that come out, but I mean, it's like 100 million times better than like every other quote-unquote live service game. So yeah, I'm looking forward. I don't expect that kind of quality or amount that Destiny 2 or Final Fantasy puts out as Arena, and that just doesn't have the backing nor the staff to be able to do so. And I think they're actually still making a new MMO. Like they had that job listing for like a new game or whatever a while back, which could possibly be Guild Wars 3. Who fucking knows at this point? I really have no idea. Perhaps that even got fucking canceled and they're just staying with Guild Wars 2 now, with this whole change. Because really, what's the point of doing this new sort of content delivery system when there's a new fucking game coming around the corner? You know, they're developing Guild Wars 3 or whatever. So I kind of think that this isn't even Guild Wars 3 anymore, and that they might not even be developing this fucking thing anymore. It might have gotten canned. So yeah, I don't know. That would be kind of sad to hear, though. So Guild Wars 2, right? So there is a history of development cycles for these expansions taking 2 years. So I don't know how long Heart of Thorns took, but Heart of Thorns, the Path of Fire, I think was like a 2 year, 2 and a little bit over that gap. And of course, we saw what happened with Path of Fire to End of Dragons. That whole shitfest happened. But when they did announce End of Dragons development, which they were in very early development, this was in, I think, the first quarter of 2020. We ended up seeing End of Dragons come out about 2 years later, on February 28th of last year. My god, what an amazing time. We had Destiny 2, Witch Queen, fucking Elden Ring, goddamn Guild Wars, man, it was great. God, what an insane time. That has to be probably my favorite period of like new video games of all time. Like, it was like seriously incredible. But anyway, got a little sidetracked. So I believe that there are 2 content updates left, but we'll get into that in a second. I want to talk about that sort of like what we were talking about a second ago with the content sort of delivery with the expansions every 2 years. So that was obviously supposed to be the thing, was every 2 years. That's what a lot of other MMOs do, is a 2-year gap between expansions. And I think ArenaNet was intending to go for that. I think it's kind of obvious they were intending to go for that. So I could totally see with them saying that they're going to be doing expansions quicker, that it's going to come out every year. So that's my whole reason behind that. There was a guy in the last video basically saying, like, how do you know it's going to come out every year or some shit like that? And it's like, it's fucking obvious, dude. Like, why would they say it's coming out quicker if it's going to be every 2 years, you know? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. So I believe that the expansion could be released late this year because of the fact that they actually announced, I believe about a month after EOD's release date, that there was a new expansion in development. Now, I think Grouch did this article, right? Grouch literally mentioned nothing about the next expansion and how big it is, and if it's following this new development sort of cycle, or if it's following the old one because of the fact that, you know, maybe they're still planning on releasing it in a year from now or whatever, you know, 2 years later. But I would presume that because of the fact that he didn't say anything about it not following the new model, that it is following the new model, and that we could be seeing it later this year, of course with the brand new sort of smaller expansions, but at a more consistent rate, kind of thing that they're doing, that they proposed. And so yeah, I believe that we will be seeing it later this year. I'm going to probably assume in quarter 4. I would assume they would have had to actually change up the expansion. I don't think that they came up with this new model a year ago. I really don't. I think this might have been more of a recent kind of thing, and now they're having to scale back the expansion. And we might actually see that expansion be kind of a shitfest story-wise, if that's the case. I really have no idea. So hopefully, you know, if it was intended like that, and a good amount of it was already done, I don't know. It's been like a year, and it usually takes 2. I don't entirely know how this development cycle works, but I do know that part. So we're seeing it later this year, most likely. And also, we have 2 content updates, right? So this is another thing that I am believing as well. In the Guild Wars 2 article that released, the studio update, they're talking about the spring roadmap, right? They mentioned the new update, and then after that, they said that storyline will conclude a few months later with an update. No, not multiple updates, an update that introduces an additional playable space in the map and some other shit, right? So they say kind of, it looks to me and it sounds to me like there's 2 updates that they're talking about here that will conclude, right? So we have this update that's coming out within like a week and a half, and then we have the next update, which I think they mentioned in this article that they want to put out new updates every like 3-4 months, some shit like that, and having a consistent sort of rate. So I think that we could be seeing that next update in May or June, and then we'll have maybe like a few month gap, maybe even 3 months to the next expansion, which I think will be releasing in Q4, perhaps maybe September. I don't know, that'd be cool to get in September. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on everything. I do believe, and that's sort of my reasoning on why I think we're going to be seeing the expansion come out this year. Like I said, unless if they're just not telling us and it is following the old delivery system that they were doing before, or it will come out next year. But honestly, fuck if I know. I really have no idea. This is all kind of speculation, of course. I do believe it has a lot of, basis, I guess is the right term. I'm not really entirely sure. But yeah, I do believe that it has some, some proof, kind of, some basis to it. I think that's a foundry. I don't know what the proper term is for what I'm trying to go for, but yeah, I think you understand what I'm trying to say, right? So yeah, that's the video, man. That's kind of when I think the next expansion is going to be coming out. I've been thinking about this all day, and I'm sort of just kind of realized, I was like, wait, if we're getting, because from the way they talked in the article, it looks like we're getting 2 updates. We could be seeing the next expansion this year, which I was thinking that we probably wouldn't until I saw that there was 2 updates and that their whole plan was that consistent delivery, right? So, yeah. Don't expect any new elite specs this time around. That's another thing that I'm really worried about, is what they're going to be doing with the elite specs, or just sandbox changes as a whole, right? New sandbox sort of items for each class. I think a new weapon would be incredibly underwhelming to get. I don't expect new elite specs every year. That's a ridiculous thing to expect, but I would like to see them every other year coming out. And as far as the balance thing goes, I don't think balance is really much of an excuse to be like, oh yeah, we can't do this now because of balance, more of them. Because it's a fucking MMO, man. These are not competitive games. They're always going to be unbalanced. If you played every other fucking MMO out there, you know that these games are naturally going to be unbalanced. There are so many skills and so much variety of things. And, dude, do you remember Guild Wars 1? I played a little bit of Guild Wars 1, but assuming that there's some Guild Wars 2 vets in here who had that ideal, like, Guild Wars 1, I think had over, what, like 1,000... It had, like, a ridiculous amount of skills. Maybe hundreds. It might have been over 1,000. They had to balance that, dude. And I know that was a nightmare for them, right? But, like, still, they did that, you know? And I could see them totally doing that again. Like I said, balance really should not be an excuse to hold back from these big bouncing tits of fucking sandbox stuff, you know? So that's just kind of how I feel about it. I don't think these games will ever be balanced. As long as things aren't power crept to all hell, like we see in Destiny 2 right now, or, you know, what ended up causing pretty much the death of Warframe was how power creep the fucking shit that game was. So yeah, that's kind of my whole ideal sort of thing around that. So I don't know, maybe you disagree, maybe you agree. I could, you know, I think at least we can agree that it's coming out this year. Like, I mean, there's no way in hell, assuming that they're following the new content delivery model, that it'll come out next year, because that wouldn't make any fucking sense. Like, we're gonna get less content for the amount of time it would have taken. You know, it doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, that's it. Peace.